We are so lucky to have two guest speakers here today. How many of you know Andrew Hewlett?
Me?
Where's Andrew? You're not there. You are. Andrew's dad. I was talking to him at conference night, and we discovered that he really likes the Civil War and that he is a Civil War interpreter. So he volunteered to come. This is Mr. Hewlett, and he volunteered to come and bring his friend Mr. Rubel, and they will tell you everything that they do and why they're dressed up like this and what today is all about. And then if you all have questions at the end, I'm sure they'll be happy to take any questions that you guys might have. Okay? But what I need to establish right away is that we are going to be on our best behavior, and we're going to be respectful. And if we're not going to be respectful, come on in. If we're not going to be respectful, then we can go out to another room and you can do some work. That's not all fun.
I'll take them to mine.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to turn the floor over to you guys, Mr. Hewlett and Mr. Rubel. Thank you.
Good morning, class. As you can see, we're a couple of Civil War reenactors. I'm in basically as an artillery Confederate uniform. Mr. Rubel here, he's in a Union infantry uniform. Does anybody know when the Civil War happened? Anybody?
1861 to 1865.
Very good. Correct? Okay. Very good. Now, Mr. Rubel here, he's a Clarksville historian, and he had a lot of information about the Civil War in the Clarksville area during that time. We brought in some of the gear and equipment that would have been worn back then. We try to remain as historically accurate as possible. There might be some small differences in the material and maybe the quality of the material back then, but as I say, we try to remain as historically accurate as possible.
Let me kind of explain something. 1861 to 65, you know, a lot of times when you're studying the Civil War, you don't realize that our nation was completely split. And we had troops from different states fighting other troops from different states. And a lot of times brothers were fighting brothers. Even women actually took up arms. A lot of the women were left without husbands, so a lot of them cut their hair short. They would put on a uniform and go fight because they didn't have anything else to do. A lot of them were hungry. There was no food. The troops would come through your farms, take everything. And everything that your family had stored up for the winter, they would take it. Horses, pigs, hams, anything. Because number one, an army has to eat. And an army that's going across land, especially the Union uniform, is like a bunch of black ants. There was a lady here in Clarksville, her name was Nanny Haskins, and she referred to the Union soldiers as black snakes, how they would crawl and slither across the land, especially in Clarksville. You have, in the state of Tennessee, you had more battles, except for the state of Virginia, fought in all of the wars. There was more wars in the territory of the state of Tennessee. One of the largest ones was Fort Donelson. Anybody ever been to Fort Donelson? If you ever get an opportunity, you and your family needs to take a trip. If you're going to be studying the Civil War, you need to go to Fort Donelson because that's one of the first places that it started. And my great-grandfather, who was only 17 years old, was there, and he was one of the soldiers that was manning the big, huge cannons. If you've never seen big cannons, you need to go there. You're going to see the actual breastworks, the earthenworks where the men went. My great-grandfather left in September of 1861, and they went to Dover, Tennessee, and they built all of these forts, this fortification. And they put up all of the big cannons. And basically, they were dressed just about like Terry is dressed. Now, they had no idea of what a Union soldier looked like. And one of the big battles down there was Fort Henry. and the big old ironclad boats came in and basically took the fort real quick. It was not that big of a battle. There were some shots, big old huge. Mr. Hewlett brought a little cannonball. I don't know that you want to pass this around. Somebody might accidentally drop this and it would hurt you. But if you could imagine one of these that's 32 pounds, it would be as big as a clock up on the wall coming at you.
That one weighs about 6 pounds.
So, but when they left Fort Henry and they went back up the Tennessee River and they came down the Cumberland River, my great-granddaddy was ready for them because they had been taught how to fire these cannons, and they fired them very, very well. Because when the 4 gunboats started to come down the river, there were 4 of them just like this. You just stick your fingers up like this and you're looking down river. That's what the 4 ironclad boats looked like coming down the river. So these men, they had all these big cannons and they just looked down the lines and let's fire. Do you know what day that's? You probably don't because you're just getting in the summer. Y'all remember Valentine's Day? That's February the 14th. So on February the 14th, Valentine's Day, 1862, the Union and the Confederate soldiers at Fort Donelson exchanged what they called the Iron Valentines. They were big old cannonballs. And these Union gunboats stopped at they're the best. And I say they were ironclad boats. And the balls were supposed to hit them and bounce off. Well, they did this a couple of times, and they said, well, we'll do something else. The Union soldiers didn't have the tops of the boats with any metal. So they fired them. It'd be like you throwing a baseball over into a box or something. That's what they did. But anyway, the battle, actually, the Union soldiers, here they come, dressed in blue. These guys, again, didn't know what in the world to expect because a lot of them actually had their, like I said before, their own brothers and their own fathers sometimes were in uniforms coming at them across these fields. So this is the first time in one of the first times in American history, except for the Revolutionary War, that they're actually firing against somebody that they might actually know over there in the woods or something. One of the things I want to let you know that we're talking about, you live in Clarksville, Tennessee. You really don't know how important Clarksville, Tennessee is. If you would study the Civil War, and in 1862, if you picked up the newspapers are the biggest newspapers in the whole United States. There's a little article over here that says Fort Donelson is captured. 14,000 rebel troops are now prisoners of war. And over here, like the front page of your paper today, Clarksville, Tennessee captured, and a whole big map of Clarksville, Tennessee. I'm talking about all over the United States, people are reading how Clarksville, Tennessee was captured. And if many of you went to Riverfest, who went to Riverfest? Most of you went to Riverfest. If you can envision walking up and down that sidewalk there, but looking at the water, looking at the boats out in the water, envision in your eyes when you're looking in your books, you'll see pictures of ironclad